More than 4.5 millennia ago, along the banks of the Nile, the world was a different place. The river flooded predictably every year, leaving behind a ribbon of black, fertile soil in the middle of a vast desert. People depended on the rhythm of those floods to grow wheat, barley, onions, and flax. Villages clustered along the river, their houses built of mud brick, narrow lanes weaving between them, smoke curling up from small hearths. At dawn, you would hear the creak of wooden wheels, the lowing of oxen, and the voices of farmers heading out to the fields. Children fetched water in clay jars, women ground grain on stone querns, and fishermen in papyrus boats cast their nets into the glittering current. Life was hard but stable, ordered by the seasons and by a sense that the gods themselves had arranged the Nile cycles to sustain them. In that world, the pharaoh was not merely a king, but the living embodiment of divine order. He was seen as the link between humans and the gods, the one who maintained ma'at, balance and justice, so the sun would rise, the floods would come, and the dead could reach the afterlife. To serve him was to serve the cosmos. Thousands of artisans, scribes, priests, and officials worked in an intricate bureaucracy that collected grain, organized labor, and planned grand projects. Stone quarries were opened, copper was brought from Sinai, cedar floated down from Lebanon. Hieroglyphs scratched onto ostraca recorded every measure of bread and beer. Even the smallest work gang had its ration of garlic and onions, carefully logged. This was not the chaos of slaves driven with whips, but the precision of a state mobilizing its people for a purpose they all believed mattered. When plans were laid to raise the Great Pyramid at Giza, the entire machine of the Old Kingdom came to life. Surveyors used ropes and sighting rods to mark out the base with astonishing accuracy. Engineers leveled the ground, cut drainage channels, and aligned the corners to the cardinal points of the compass. Massive limestone blocks, some weighing several tons, were pried from quarries dressed on site and dragged to the plateau on sledges that glided more easily over wet sand. Teams of haulers sang rhythmically as they pulled, their feet stamping the desert dust. Overseers coordinated shifts so that work continued without pause during the cooler hours of the day, while camps nearby bustled with bakers, brewers, potters, and medics who treated blisters and sunburns. Far from being a punishment, service on the pyramid was a kind of national duty and a path to extra rations, clothing, and sometimes honor. Daily life at the construction site had its own rhythm. Rows of low barracks housed the rotating workforce, and narrow streets led to communal bakeries where huge domed ovens produced thousands of loaves each day. Beer, thick and nutritious, was brewed in vats and distributed in jars. The air was filled with the clang of copper chisels, the rasp of dolerite pounding stones, and the calls of foremen counting off blocks. Skilled masons cut the finer casing stones, smoothing them so perfectly that joints vanished. Artists painted marks and symbols to guide placement, leaving behind the graffiti we still find on hidden blocks today, nicknames of crews, jokes, prayers for protection. As the pyramid rose, ramps of packed earth and limestone chips snaked up its sides, extended and rebuilt as the height increased, turning the structure into a kind of artificial mountain of work, faith, and logistics. The building of the pyramid also bound the kingdom together in unseen ways. Farmers from far-off provinces sent their surplus grain to feed the workers. Boatmen ferried supplies up and down the Nile, their sails catching the steady north wind, while scribes in reed shelters tallied every consignment. Priests performed rituals to bless the endeavor, burning incense and pouring libations to appease the gods. Stories about the pharaoh's divine destiny circulated among the people, giving the project a sacred aura. In a world without newspapers or mass media, the sight of a colossal stone mountain slowly rising above the desert horizon was itself a message. The state is strong. The gods are with us. Our ruler will live forever. Inside the pyramid, passages and chambers were laid out with mathematical precision and symbolic meaning. The king's burial chamber, carved from massive blocks of granite brought from Aswan hundreds of miles away, was meant to protect his body for eternity. Hieroglyphic texts on nearby tombs and temples speak of the pharaoh ascending to the sky to join the sun god Ra, becoming an imperishable star. Around the main pyramids, smaller pyramids were raised for queens, and a vast necropolis grew, filled with mastabas for nobles and officials. This was not just a tomb, but the nucleus of a sacred landscape, a city of the dead that mirrored the city of the living, binding heaven and earth together in stone. Yet life beyond the construction sites continued in its familiar patterns. Farmers tilled their plots during the inundation's retreat. Craftsmen in village workshops made pottery, jewelry, and linen, and children learned by imitating their parents' trades. Music, games, and festivals punctuated the year. The Feast of the Valley, the procession of sacred boats, and local fairs gave people respite and reaffirmed their ties to community and tradition. The same hands that hauled blocks also played flutes and drums at night, told stories of gods and heroes, and dreamed of a good harvest or a healthy child. The grandeur of the pyramids was built not by faceless masses, but by individual lives full of hope, toil, and belief. Looking back from today, it is easy to see the pyramids as timeless monuments, but in their own age they were part of a living, breathing society. They embodied a vision of order and eternity that gave meaning to people's struggles and linked their brief human lives to cosmic cycles. The limestone casing once gleamed white under the desert sun, reflecting light so brilliantly it could be seen for miles, a beacon of the pharaoh's eternal presence. Over centuries, the casing stones were stripped, the ramps eroded, and the names of many workers lost to time. But the core remains, a testimony to an age when human organization, natural rhythms, and religious imagination combined to produce something that still astonishes the world.